Greetings wizards! As you may or may not know, I've been diving headfirst into Elden Ring, and it's been incredible. But man, have I been getting my ass kicked. I mean, I'm used to shouting at dragons in Skyrim, not dodging tree sentinels, so I've been learning a lot, and fast. But I'm getting the hang of it, and one thing I found is that having the right weapon early on can be a lifesaver. And with the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC just around the corner, now's the perfect time to get ahead of the game. So I've ranked my top 10 early game weapons which you can grab practically right out of the gate. We'll cover what makes each one great, where to find them, and a few tips on how to use them. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. Kicking off our list at number 10, we have the Zweihander. This colossal greatsword is an absolute unit, capable of dishing out massive damage and staggering most enemies with ease. Now, it's definitely not the lightest weapon, weighing in at 15.5, but it is in fact the lightest colossal sword in the game. Still, you'll need a decent amount of endurance to swing this beast effectively, but the payoff is well worth it. Its high physical damage scales primarily with strength, so if you're running a strength build, you'll be cleaving through foes like nobody's business. To wield it, you'll need 19 strength and 11 dexterity, making it a great early game option. In terms of its moveset, the Zweihander is all about slow, heavy hitting strikes that cover a wide area, making it ideal for crowd control, especially when you're facing groups of smaller enemies. Its weapon skill, Stamp, is also a devastating attack that can knock most enemies off their feet, leaving them wide open for a critical hit. To get the most out of the Zweihander, I'd recommend going for a heavy affinity to maximize your strength scaling. As for Ashes of War, you can stick with Stamp if you like, but personally I love Royal Knight's Resolve for that extra damage boost. And of course, you can upgrade it with regular smithing stones as you progress, making it even more powerful as you level up. Now, to add this weapon to your arsenal, just head on over to the Isolated Merchant in the Weeping Peninsula. He'll be happy to sell it to you, and it's a purchase you won't regret. Coming in at number 9 is a must-have for any aspiring mage, the Meteorite Staff. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't nearly dabbled into magic as much as I would have liked yet, but when I do decide to channel my inner sorcerer, this staff is going to be my first pick. One of the main reasons it's so good is its incredible scaling with intelligence, meaning the more points you invest into that attribute, the harder those spells are gonna hit. And let's face it, as a sorcerer, intelligence is your bread and butter, so you'll meet the staff's requirements in no time. Unlike some other weapons, the Meteorite Staff doesn't have any fancy special skills, but what it does have is a unique passive bonus that supercharges all your gravity spells. So, spells like Rock Sling, Gravity Well, and even the appropriately named Meteorite spell become absolutely devastating in your hands. Now, there is a small catch. The Meteorite Staff is the only weapon in the entire game that cannot be upgraded. So as you progress further, you might find other staves that can be enhanced to eventually surpass it. But in those crucial early hours, this staff's raw damage and scaling will more than carry you through some tough encounters. To really get the most out of it, I recommend pumping points into intelligence and mind to increase your FP, and maybe a little into vigor to keep you in the fight. You'll also want to prioritize those gravity spells to make the most of that unique passive bonus, but don't be afraid to experiment with other spells too. After all, the Meteorite Staff's impressive scaling means you'll get the most out of your entire spell arsenal. You can find the Meteorite Staff in the Street of Sage's Ruins, tucked away in the swampy area of Caelid. It's a bit of a trek to get there, but it's well worth the journey for any budding sorcerer. And while you're there, make sure to grab the Rock Sling spell nearby. It pairs incredibly well with this staff. At number 8, we have the Great Épée. This heavy thrusting sword might not be the flashiest weapon, but don't let its appearance fool you. With a base physical damage of 124, it packs a serious punch that'll make short work of those early game foes you'll encounter. Plus, it only requires 15 strength and 16 dexterity, making it easily accessible for newer Tarnished. And as you level up those attributes, the Great Épée scales well, ensuring its damage output grows alongside you. But what truly sets this weapon apart is its moveset. It excels at piercing attacks, perfect for punishing enemy openings or staggering foes. and its default weapon skill, Impaling Thrust, amplifies this strength even further, unleashing a devastating lunge that can break an enemy's stance and inflict massive damage from a surprising range. And speaking of range, running attacks, especially heavy ones, give you insane reach. Pair this with a shield and you can poke from behind its defense, making you a formidable opponent at any distance. Just be warned, I found that sometimes it can miss smaller enemies, poking right over them or even through them without dealing any damage. Thankfully, this doesn't happen too often though. To make the most out of the Great Épée, I recommend a heavy affinity to boost its raw physical damage. For Ashes of War, Impaling Thrust is a solid choice, no doubt, but if you're feeling adventurous, try something like Blood Tax for even more aggressive poking. You can also upgrade it with regular smithing stones. Now if you want to get your hands on the Great Épée, head over to Limgrave and make your way east of the Agiel Lake south side of Grace. There you'll find a small camp with a chest containing the sword, just waiting for you to unleash its power. Coming in at number 7, we have the Claymore. Now this is our first greatsword on the list, and it's a real all-rounder. This weapon scales nicely with both strength and dexterity, making it a great fit for a variety of builds. What really sets the Claymore apart is its sheer power. This thing hits like a truck, especially if you two-hand it and pump some points into strength. It's not all about brute force though. The Claymore boasts a solid moveset with those sweeping horizontal slashes that are perfect for crowd control in its one-handed form, and it's got a surprisingly useful thrust attack that's great for poking and punishing aggressive enemies. Now don't worry if you're not exactly a muscle-bound warrior, you only need 16 strength and 13 dexterity to wield the Claymore, which is pretty manageable early on. It also comes equipped with the Lion's Claw weapon skill, a devastating front flip attack that not only looks badass but absolutely wrecks an enemy's poise, punishing them for getting too close. Sure, it might not be the fastest weapon out there, but the Claymore's reach and damage output more than make up for its slightly slower swing speed. And the best part is that you can keep it upgraded with regular smithing stones. You can find the Claymore at Castle Morn, just past the burning corpses inside a chest within this building. At number 6, we have the Cross-Naginata. This one packs a hefty punch, especially when you factor in its innate bleed build-up. You'll be steadily whittling down enemy health bars with every hit, no problem. It's not too heavy either, so you won't be sacrificing agility for damage. One of the best things about this weapon is how easy it is to get your hands on early in the game. The stat requirements aren't too demanding, and it scales mainly with dexterity and strength, making it a great fit for a variety of builds. The moveset is another massive plus for the Cross-Naginata. You've got those piercing thrusts, perfect for poking enemies from a distance, and those wide sweeping attacks that are brilliant for crowd control or dealing with those bigger baddies. The weapon skill it comes with, Impaling Thrust, can be devastating as well. But if that's not your style, you can easily swap it out for another Ash of War. If you do, I suggest going for either a heavy or keen affinity, depending on whether you're more focused on strength or dexterity. And as an added bonus, you can upgrade it easily with your regular smithing stones. If you're keen to give the Cross-Naginata a spin, head on over to Gale Tunnel and claim it for yourself. At number 5, we have the Flamberge. Now this is arguably the best greatsword you can get your hands on early in the game, especially with its relatively low stat requirements. It packs a punch with solid physical damage and even has some built-in bleed damage, which is super effective against a lot of enemies. One of the things I really appreciate about the Flamberge is that its stat requirements aren't too demanding. With only 15 strength and 14 dexterity required, it's pretty achievable early on. What's more, it scales well with both of those stats, making it a cracking choice if you're going for a quality build or even a dexterity build that wants to hit a bit harder. Now, like the Zweihander, the Flamberge comes with the stamp weapon skill, but you can easily swap this out for something more useful. Personally, I'd recommend going for the Seppuku Ash of War. It gives your bleed build-up a massive boost which can absolutely shred through enemies. Another great option is the Stormblade, which adds a ranged attack to your arsenal. This gives the Flamberge some much needed range. When it comes to weapon affinity, the Keen affinity is the way to go, as this buffs your dexterity scaling and gives you a better chance to inflict bleed, making you a versatile threat in any combat situation. And as for upgrades, the Flamberge uses standard smithing stones, so leveling it up as you progress is no trouble at all. To get your hands on the Flamberge, you'll need to head to Caelid and make your way to Redmain Castle. You'll find it up on the rampart, guarded by a pumpkin head. Coming in at number 4, we have the Reduvia. This little dagger might not look like much, but it hits way above its weight class, especially when you factor in its bleed buildup. You see, the Reduvia is all about speed and precision. Weighing in at only 2.5, it's incredibly lightweight, letting you unleash lightning fast attacks. Couple those quick strikes with its bleed effect and that bleed meter fills up in no time. Plus, it's got a solid base physical damage of 79, which puts it right up there with the best daggers in terms of raw power. Now, to wield it, you'll need at least 5 strength, 13 dexterity and 13 arcane, which is not too demanding at all. And as you level up those dexterity and arcane stats, you'll see the Reduvia truly come into its own. But the real star of the show here is its unique weapon skill, Reduvia Bloodblade. This beauty lets you fling projectiles of blood at your enemies, which is fantastic for whittling down their health from a safe distance. And since it's a dagger with a naturally short reach, this added range is a game changer. But the one downside of this weapon is that it's not infusible, so you can't apply Ashes of War to it. But to be honest, this isn't a huge deal because the weapon skill it comes with is more than enough. In terms of upgrades, you can buff the Reduvia with regular smithing stones, making it even deadlier as you progress. Now, to get your hands on this bleed-inducing beast, you'll need to venture into the murky depths of Murkwater Cave in Limgrave. There, you'll face off against Bloodyfinger Nereus, a tough invader who definitely puts up a fight, but the reward is more than worth it. At number 3 now, we have the Uchigatana. Now, if you started your journey as a samurai, this sleek katana is your trusty sidekick right out of the gate. But don't worry if you didn't pick the samurai class, because you can still grab this beauty early on in the game. Now, this weapon's a bit of a featherweight, coming in at only 5.5, but don't let that fool you. It still dishes out a respectable 115 physical attack damage. Plus, it's not too demanding on your stats, needing only 15 dexterity and 11 strength, numbers that most of us should be hitting fairly early in the game. So what makes the Uchigatana a top contender for your early game arsenal? Well, it's a katana that scales primarily with dexterity and a bit with strength, making it ideal if you're rocking a dexterity build. Its moveset is all about speed and agility, a mix of rapid slashes and wide arcs that'll help you cut through groups of enemies like butter. And let's not forget about that sweet bleed buildup, which can stagger enemies and open them up for critical hits. The weapon skill Unsheath is a real highlight too. It's a lightning fast, powerful draw attack that can catch enemies off guard and deal serious damage. Bloody Slash is a popular choice for adding a bit more damage, but personally I'd recommend sticking with either the Keen affinity to really boost that dexterity and bleed scaling, or the Heavy affinity if you're leaning more towards a strength build. So while it might not be the absolute strongest weapon you'll find, the Uchigatana is a reliable and versatile choice that will serve you well throughout the early game and beyond, especially with upgrades from your regular smithing stones. To claim your Uchigatana, simply head to the Death-Touched Catacombs in Stormhill, Limgrave. Don't forget to pull that lever to unlock the door in one of the earlier halls. You'll find the katana resting on a corpse, hanging over the edge of the platform. Coming in at number 2, we have another katana, the Nagakiba. Now, if you've been enjoying the Uchigatana, this is basically its big brother. It's got the same sleek design and razor-sharp edge you'd expect from a katana, but with a much longer blade for some extra reach. Just take a look at them side by side for comparison. big difference. The Nagakiba is a dex weapon through and through, so it scales primarily with your dexterity, but you'll still get a little boost from strength too. You'll need 22 dexterity and 18 strength to wield it effectively, which is a bit more demanding than most weapons on this list, but it's worth those extra levels. Now when it comes to the moveset, the Nagakiba has your classic katana moveset, all quick slashes and that sort of thing, but it also has a unique long-reaching thrust attack that fully takes advantage of that extended blade. The base physical damage is solid, and like the Uchigatana, it's got excellent bleed build-up. It comes with the unsheathed weapon skill too, although you can always swap that out for a different Ash of War if you fancy something else. I personally like double slash on this one, and as usual you can upgrade it with your regular smithing stones. To get your hands on the Nagakiba, you'll need to track down a bloody finger hunter Yura. He's a bit of a wanderer, so you might find him in a few different locations throughout Limgrave, but the reward is well worth the effort. Last but not least, we have the Bloodhound's Fang. Now as someone who's still new to these Soulsborne games and gets their backside handed to them more often than not, this weapon was an absolute game changer for me. I started out as a confessor, stuck with the starting broadsword for ages, then stumbled across this beauty, and never looked back. This curved greatsword is an absolute powerhouse. It's a heavy hitter weighing in at 11.5, so you'll need a bit of strength to swing it effectively, but the damage output is worth every bit of effort. Right from the get-go, you're looking at 141 physical attack damage, scaling well with both strength and dexterity, though you'll want to focus on dexterity for optimal scaling. To wield the Bloodhound's Fang, you'll need 18 strength and 17 dexterity, which might be a bit of a stretch early on, but as you level up, this weapon really comes into its own. You can upgrade it all the way up to plus 10 using somber smithing stones, so it'll stay relevant throughout your entire playthrough. One of the best things about this weapon is its unique skill, Bloodhound's Finesse. This is a two-part attack, starting with an upward slash, followed by a slick backward somersault to create some distance. Then after the backflip, you can follow up with a strong attack to perform the Bloodhound Step, which sends you dashing forward, dealing high damage and even giving you a few frames of invisibility during the dash. It's one of my favourite weapon skills for sure, and I used it a lot. The only potential downside, and it's a minor one, is that the Bloodhound's Fang isn't infusible. Not that it really matters, as its weapon skill is incredible, but it would have been nice to have the option to change its affinity. To acquire this beast of a weapon, you'll need to defeat Bloodhound Knight Darrywill in the Forlorn Hound Everjail, located in Limgrave. It's a tough fight, but for the best early game weapon, it's well worth the challenge. And there we have it. But do keep in mind this is just my personal opinion, and the best weapon for you might be something totally different. So definitely experiment with different weapons and see what suits your playstyle the best. Speaking of, I'd love to hear what you guys are using early in the game, so drop your favourite weapons down in the comments below. I've got plenty more Elden Ring content coming your way, especially with that DLC on the horizon, so hit that subscribe button and ring the bell if you don't want to miss any of it. Thanks for watching, Wizards, and I'll see you all in the next one.